Hi guys, today we're gonna read Mr. Dizzy by Roger Hargreaves. Mr. Dizzy
was, to be quite honest, not very clever. If you were to ask Mr. Dizzy what was the opposite of black, he'd say
pink.
The opposite of black is
Pink.
pink.
It's actually white.
He lived in a house on a hill which he had built himself.
A not very clever house.
Correct. Who builds a house on the side of a hill?
We don't know.
Not a clever man. One of Mr. Dizzy's problems was that he lived in a country where everybody else was terribly clever. Cleverland. Even the birds were clever in Cleverland.
We would.
Everything and everybody in Cleverland was clever. You'll never see a worm reading a book anywhere else but Cleverland. Poor Mr. Dizzy. Everything around him was so clever. It made his head spin. Woo! One morning, Mr. Dizzy was out for a walk when he met a pig. What's big?
The pig.
No, it's just a pig.
The pig.
What's big and grey and has big ears and a trunk? Said
It's an elephant.
Said the clever pig to Mr. Dizzy.
Elephant.
A mouse? Said Mr. Dizzy. The pig laughed sarcastically at Mr. Dizzy and went off shaking his head.
Everyone's clever in Cleverland.
Then Mr. Dizzy met an elephant. A clever elephant. What's small and furry and likes cheese? The elephant asked cleverly. A pig? Replied Mr. Dizzy. The clever elephant laughed down his trunk. A pig, he trumpeted. A pig, you silly man! And off he went. Poor Mr. Dizzy. Mr. Dizzy decided he didn't want to talk to anybody else that day, so he went for a walk in the wood, where he knew that he wouldn't meet anybody. He felt very miserable about not being clever, and as he walked along, a tear trickled down his cheek. Where's that trickle? Oh, it's pouring down. Poor Mr. Dizzy. Then, in the middle of the wood, he came across a well. Little did Mr. Dizzy know that it was a wishing well. The day was warm, and so he decided to take a drink of the water from the well. Mr. Dizzy drank deeply. How do you drink deeply? But he was still unhappy. Oh, I wish I could be clever, he sighed. Little did Mr. Dizzy know that whoever drinks deeply from the water at the wishing well, his wish will come true. Mr. Dizzy had wished that he could be clever, and his wish had come true. He was clever, but he didn't know it. Not yet. On the way home, Mr. Dizzy came across the elephant and the pig he had met earlier. They were telling each other about how they had made Mr. Dizzy look silly by asking him a question he couldn't answer. They were giggling and sniggering about it. Then, when they saw Mr. Dizzy approaching from the wood, "Here he comes again," giggled the clever pig. "Let's ask him another question," sniggered the clever elephant. Mr. Dizzy came up to them. "Tell us," said the clever pig, trying to keep a straight face, "what's white and woolly and goes meh?" "Why, a sheep, of course," replied Mr. Dizzy. The pig and the elephant were amazed. To tell the truth, so too was Mr. Dizzy. He suddenly felt very, very clever. It was not an unpleasant feeling. Mr. Dizzy felt pretty good about himself. "Tell us," said the clever elephant, "what has 4 legs, a tail, and goes ruff?" "Oh, how easy," replied Mr. Dizzy. "A dog, of course." The clever pig and the clever elephant couldn't understand how Mr. Dizzy had become so clever in one morning. Ooh, that's pretty awesome.
Can you become clever in one morning?
I think you can become
Pig
cleverer in one morning, but not that clever. Wow. Mr. Dizzy couldn't understand how he had become so clever in one morning, but we know how he became so clever in one morning, don't we?
Yes.
How did he do it?
He drank deeply out of the well.
"Now let me ask you a question," said Mr. Dizzy to the pig. "You," grunted the pig rudely. "You ask me a question? Don't be ridiculous. There's no question you could ask me that I couldn't answer." "Really?" smiled Mr. Dizzy. "Well then, can you tell me what's fat and pink and goes a tissue, a tissue?" "What's fat and pink and goes a tissue, a tissue?" repeated the pig, looking worried. "There's nothing that's fat and pink and goes a tissue, a tissue." Oh, here we go.
Oh.
"Nothing, said Mr. Dizzy and tickled the pig's nose. "Achoo! Achoo!" sneezed the pig. "The answer is you," said Mr. Dizzy. "You're fat and pink and you're going achoo! Achoo!" The clever pig looked downright, if not down left, miserable. Oh, poor pig.
Now it's gonna say Dizzy. Yes.
Mr. Dizzy turned to the elephant, who, incidentally, had stopped sniggering. "Now," said Mr. Dizzy, "let me ask you a question. What is large and grey and goes
Dop it.
dop it?"
Dop it.
What the heck? What does that word mean? "What's large and grey and goes dop it," repeated the elephant, looking worried. "There's nothing that's large and grey and goes dop it."
Really?
"Oh, yes, there is," grinned Mr. Dizzy. "There certainly is something that is large and grey and goes dop it. He tied a knot in the clever elephant's trunk. "Dop it!
Dop
cried
it.
the elephant, who wanted to say stop it, but he couldn't talk properly with a knot in his trunk. Mr. Dizzy grinned and went home. Oh, Mr. Dizzy turned into a meanie. Cheeky. Stop it. Hey, stop it. I depose to think that's funny, said Mr. Elephant. Oh, poor Mr. Elephant and poor Mr. Pig. But that's what happens when you're mean to people. You gotta be nice all the time, otherwise they might come back to bite you in the butt.
Hi guys, I hope you liked our story. Give us a subscribe to our channel if you liked it. Give us a big thumbs up. And what story you want us to read next, comment down below. Kick story!